The hands are around your throat before you even open your eyes. They are heavy, inescapable.
Oh, such a visceral way to start.
Right. You are thrashing, kicking against the sheets. You're trying to suck in just a single breath, but your airway is completely crushed. The panic is absolute.
And you look up, desperate. Through the haze of terror, you see the face of the man killing you.
It isn't a stranger. It isn't some random intruder. It is the man sleeping next to you, the man who promised to protect you. And honestly, the most terrifying part, he looks perfectly calm.
Then you jolt awake. Your lungs are heaving, pulling in air that feels way too cold.
The sheets are totally soaked with sweat. Your heart is hammering this frantic rhythm against your ribs. You look over and he's there, sleeping peacefully.
The exact same hands that were just choking the life out of you are resting gently on the duvet.
And you think to yourself, it was just a dream. You tell yourself, I am safe.
But the real question we're grappling with today is, what if you aren't? What if that dream wasn't just some random firing of neurons, but an actual warning shot? A distress signal from the absolute deepest, most primal part of your brain just screaming at you to run.
What happens when your subconscious is screaming the truth, but the person you trust most in the world, a man of science, a man of medicine, convinces you that you are actually losing your mind?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tearing into a story that sits right at that terrifying intersection of intimacy and danger.
We are analyzing Don't Open Your Eyes by Liv Constantine. And let me tell you, this book is an absolute trip.
It really is. It's not just a thriller. It is a full-blown psychological battleground.
We have premonitions, we got medical gaslighting, and we have a twist that genuinely made my jaw drop.
It's a fascinating case study in intuition versus authority. You got this protagonist, Annabelle, who is experiencing these terrifying visions, and she's pitted against her husband, James, who represents the ultimate authority. I mean, he's a man of science, a highly respected neurologist.
So the conflict isn't just about whether there's a bad guy. It's a conflict over reality itself. Whose version of reality is true?
Exactly. Is it the intuitive, highly emotional experience of the wife, or the clinical, quote-unquote, rational explanation of the husband?
And that dynamic is what makes this so incredibly relatable for you listening right now. I mean, sure, maybe you haven't had psychic dreams about car accidents.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. But who hasn't had that feeling of, something is just off, only to be told you're just stressed or you're overthinking it?
Right. It's that universal struggle of trusting yourself against a really authoritative voice. It touches on the subtle dynamics of control in relationships and that terrifying realization that we might not truly know the people we sleep next to.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to trace Annabelle's journey from her seemingly perfect suburban life in Bayport, Connecticut, through the terrifying escalation of her dreams, all the way to this shattering realization of betrayal that changes literally everything.
We are going to look at the clues she missed, the clues she eventually found, and what this story tells us about the true nature of control.
And we should definitely warn you, we are going to spoil the absolute heck out of this book. We are unpacking the ending, the twists, everything.
So if you haven't read it and you want to be completely surprised, pause this deep dive right now, go read it. But if you are ready to analyze the anatomy of a perfect deception, let's get right into it.
Okay, let's set the stage here. Section 1, the facade of perfection. Because on paper, Annabelle Reynolds really has it all.
She absolutely does. She's living in Bayport, which is this charming upscale town in Connecticut. Think perfectly manicured lawns, relentless social calendars, and that kind of quiet wealth that whispers rather than shouts.
She is walking distance to the beach. She has this gorgeous house with a custom farm table and a pool. She has 2 daughters, Scarlett, who is 15 and definitely giving her a run for her money.
Oh yeah, a classic rebellious teen.
Totally. And Olivia, who is 11 and still in that sweet, very innocent phase.
And we can't forget the pets.
Never forget the pets. Parker, the golden retriever, who has this weird penchant for eating socks, which actually becomes a recurring stressor in the house. Plus, guinea pigs and goldfish. It is the picture of a bustling, happy family.
It really feels like a catalog spread for the American dream. And then there's James.
James Reynolds. He is the anchor of this perfect life. He's a highly successful neurologist, respected in the community. He literally just won a Best Doctor award for Connecticut Magazine.
He is presented as the rock, the provider, the ultimate fixer. If you were looking at this family from the outside, you would just think, wow, they have made it.
And there is always a big but. In these deep dives, when we actually step inside Annabelle's head, things feel, they feel forced.
Very forced.
There's a scene early on that really stuck with me. Annabelle's in the shower, and she's doing these daily gratitude affirmations. She's standing under the water saying out loud, I'm thankful for my husband, my children, our good health.
That is such a crucial detail. Because on the surface, a gratitude practice is a super healthy thing. Therapists recommend it everywhere. But in Annabelle's context, it feels way less like appreciation and more like a shield.
Yes, she's actively trying to convince herself she's happy. She even admits she feels foolish doing it. She's doing it because a client told her it's good for mental health, but internally she's fighting off these much darker feelings.
It feels like she's trying to caulk over cracks in her psyche with just sheer positive thinking.
And we learn pretty quickly that those cracks are really deep. Annabelle has a severe history of trauma. She lost her fiancé, Randy, years ago. And he didn't die initially. He cheated on her. She actually walked in on him.
That betrayal completely shattered her trust in her own judgment. She thought he was the one, and he turned out to be a liar. And then she suffered the loss of a child previously. She has this whole before life that was just full of pain.
And that trauma is the exact crack in the foundation that James exploits. Because she has suffered such immense loss, she is terrified of losing what she has now. So she clings to this perfect life with James as a way to literally bury the past.
She's practically chanting, I am happy just to keep the demons at bay.
Right. It's a coping mechanism, but it is also a massive vulnerability. James knows she is fragile. He knows she is terrified of instability, so he deliberately positions himself as the ultimate stabilizer.
But if we look closer, his brand of stability looks an awful lot like control.
Let's talk about those control dynamics. Because they are so subtle at first, they aren't obvious abuse, they're disguised as caring. This is where Liv Constantine's writing gets really, really clever.
It is the death by a thousand cuts style of control. Take the coffee scene, for instance. This seems so minor, but it honestly made my skin crawl.
Oh my gosh, the oat milk, this drove me crazy. James brings her coffee in bed, which sounds super romantic, right? But he's like, I made it with oat milk and no sweetener because artificial sugars are bad for you.
And Annabelle's reaction is the key here. Does she say, James, I want my coffee the way I like it? No, she totally accepts it. She just says, yes, Doc. And then she secretly plans to sneak downstairs and put some Splenda in it once he leaves for work.
It seems trivial, but think about what that actually represents. He is policing what she ingests under the guise of health. He is making decisions for her body without her consent.
And she has learned that it is easier to deceive him in small ways than to confront him directly. It creates this totally messed up parent-child dynamic. He treats her like a patient, not a partner.
Exactly. It's like, I know what is best for your health, Annabelle. You don't know what you want. It's wildly infantilizing.
And we see it with the kids, too. James is super strict with Scarlett, the teenager. He is constantly disappointed in her, constantly nitpicking. He wants the family to be this perfect extension of his own perfection.
While Annabelle is the one just trying to keep the peace, walking on eggshells all day, she describes feeling like she's on a tightrope, desperately trying to balance everyone's emotions.
And whenever she falters on that tightrope, whenever she expresses any fear or worry, James pulls out his absolute favorite weapon, the anxiety label.
This is basically gaslighting 101 for this deep dive. Because Annabelle isn't just worried about nothing. She starts having these dreams, violent, very specific dreams. And James has a ready-made clinical explanation for all of them.
This brings us right into the second phase of the story, the struggle, the premonitions. It starts with that choking dream we mentioned in the intro. She dreams James is strangling her. She wakes up terrified. And what does James say?
It's just stress. You're spiraling.
Exactly. But then the dreams actually start bleeding into reality. And this is where it gets incredibly spooky. She dreams about a pickup truck accident, a very specific type of crash. She hears the sound of metal on metal. She sees the color of the truck.
And then, shortly after that, James is almost in a head-on collision with a pickup truck going the wrong way.
And instead of saying, wow, that is a weird coincidence, or maybe you're onto something, James totally doubles down on the medical skepticism. He tells her she probably heard about a crash on the news and just incorporated it into her dream retrospectively.
He uses his authority as a neurologist to explain away her intuition. He literally uses big words just to make her feel small. He tells her to stay off WebMD.
He treats her concern like a pathology. He tells her she needs to go back to her therapist, Monica. He actively brings up her past, saying, you're catastrophizing just like you did when Scarlett was a baby.
That is such a devastating tactic. He is weaponizing her past vulnerability, her postpartum anxiety, her grief, to completely invalidate her current reality.
He's essentially saying, you are broken, so your perceptions cannot be trusted. It isolates her completely. She desperately wants a husband to hold her hand and say, wow, that's scary. But she gets a doctor telling her to take a pill and calm down.
And the worst part is, it works. She starts questioning herself. She genuinely wonders, do I have a brain tumor? Am I losing my mind like my mother did? Because we find out her mother has significant mental health issues, specifically schizophrenia.
Annabelle is terrified. She is genetically destined to lose her grip on reality, which is exactly where James wants her. If she believes she is sick, she needs him to take care of her. She remains completely dependent.
It is a closed loop of control. He creates the illness, the self-doubt, and then graciously offers himself as the only cure.
But then the loop breaks. And it breaks because of a stranger in a dream.
This is the catalyst, the major turning point in the book. Annabelle has a dream about a man she has never met. Blue eyes, curly hair. They are in this romantic setting, like a hotel or a beach, and she feels this intense connection with him.
It's not frightening like the other dreams, it's actually freeing.
It feels kind of like an affair, doesn't it? She wakes up feeling really guilty.
She does. But the dream wasn't really about sex. It was about intimacy. In the dream, she felt safe. She felt understood. It was her subconscious showing her exactly what was missing in her marriage. It wasn't just, oh, here is a handsome guy. It was, here is what emotional connection actually feels like.
And then, boom, she runs into him in real life.
Literally.
Yes. She meets this man. His name is Chase. And he isn't a figment of her imagination at all. He's a real flesh and blood person. He's an investigative podcaster and a journalist.
The introduction of Chase is so pivotal because he represents the exact antithesis of James. When Annabelle tentatively shares her fears about the dreams, Chase doesn't diagnose her. He just listens.
He validates her. He tells her there's a long history of people seeing the future in dreams. He says, maybe the universe is sending you a message.
The release she feels in that moment is palpable. Finally, someone isn't treating her like a mental patient. She completely unburdens herself to him. She tells him about Randy, about the baby she lost.
They form this deep emotional intimacy that is totally lacking in her marriage. It highlights the stark contrast between the perfect husband who silences her and the stranger who actually hears her.
But Chase isn't just there to be a romantic foil. He has an agenda.
Oh, does he ever? This is the first really major twist. Chase didn't just bump into her by accident. He specifically sought her out.
Right, because Chase has a massive secret, too. He believes that his son, Lucas, and Annabelle's son, the one she thinks died at birth, were switched.
Let's just pause and let that sink in for a second. She has spent over a decade mourning a dead child. She has visited a grave. She has carried that heavy grief like a stone in her pocket every single day.
And then this stranger just walks in and says, I think your baby is alive, and I've been raising him.
It completely upends her entire narrative of the past. It suggests that her trauma, the very trauma James uses to control her, is actually based on a lie.
Chase has been raising a boy named Lucas, and he has solid reason to believe that Lucas is not his biological son, or at least not his wife's biological son.
And the connection she feels to this idea is instant. She feels pulled toward this truth, even though it sounds completely insane on paper. But before they can fully investigate this, before she can even process this massive revelation, tragedy strikes.
The premonition comes true in the worst possible way.
This brings us to section 4, the tragedy. Annabelle had a dream about Scarlett, her 15-year-old daughter, being bloodied and bruised in a hospital. She saw the bright fluorescent lights. She smelled the antiseptic.
And she actively tried to stop it. She literally begged James not to let Scarlett go on a ski trip. She made a huge scene.
And James totally humiliated her for it. He apologized to the other parents for his quote-unquote hysterical wife. He forced Scarlett to go, basically just to prove a point to Annabelle that her fears were irrational.
He completely prioritized his social standing and his rationality over her gut instinct.
And guess what happens? Scarlett gets hit by a car.
It's a brutal hit and run. Scarlett ends up in a coma. And this is where the rubber really meets the road for Annabelle's intuition. She knew something bad was going to happen. She tried to prevent it, and James stopped her. Now, her daughter is fighting for her life.
The dynamic in the hospital room is just heartbreaking. James, the neurologist, goes into full clinical detachment mode. He is giving Annabelle the absolute worst-case scenarios, talking about intracranial pressure and statistics. He's preparing her for Scarlett's death.
It's his defense mechanism, sure. But it is also another insidious form of control. He is trying to manage her expectations, trying to control her hope.
But Annabelle refuses. She becomes fierce. She utterly rejects his fatalism. This is the exact moment where she starts to finally break away from his authority. She stops saying, "Yes, doc," and starts saying she's going to wake up.
She stops being the patient and fully becomes the mother. The maternal instinct completely overrides the submissive wife programming he installed.
But things get super messy because the police are investigating the hit and run, and suspicion naturally falls on Chase.
Of course it does. The random stranger who just appeared in town. The man who has been meeting with Annabelle secretly. It looks really bad. And James is actively fueling that fire. He suspects Chase is involved. He paints Chase as a stalker, a danger.
Annabelle is totally torn between this developing trust she has in Chase and the absolute chaos unfolding around her. But she clings to the truth Chase told her. The baby switch. She starts looking into it. And this is where the real unraveling begins.
She goes back to her memory of the birth. She forces herself to revisit the absolute most painful night of her life. And she remembers a very specific detail, a bracelet.
The bracelet, this is the smoking gun of the whole story.
She remembers putting a custom bracelet on her baby's wrist right after birth. It had her mother's birthday engraved on it. It was a deeply sentimental object.
And Chase tells her that his wife, Tara, gave birth the exact same night at the exact same hospital. Their baby died, but they left the hospital with a living baby Lucas, who had that specific bracelet on.
The implication is impossible to ignore. Two babies. One lives, one dies. They are swapped. But how? A custom hospital bracelet doesn't just fall off one baby and magically land on another. It had to be physically moved. It had to be a deliberate, conscious act.
Annabelle starts connecting the dots. Who had access? Who was the doctor on call that night? Who has a god complex the size of Connecticut?
James.
It always comes back to James. Annabelle finally confronts him. And this scene, it is so chilling because he doesn't deny it. He admits it, but he doesn't admit it with any shame. He admits it with, I don't even know, is it pride?
That's the most disturbing part by far. This is the horror of benevolence. James explains that he switched the babies for her.
He says she was overwhelmed. She was grieving her mother. She wasn't ready to be a mom. He says Chase and Tara, the Summers family, were desperate for a child. So he just played God.
Let's clarify the actual mechanics here, because it's so important to understand his twisted logic. Chase and Tara's baby was the one that died. Annabelle's baby lived. James took Annabelle's healthy, living baby and physically gave him to Chase and Tara. Then he turned around and told Annabelle her baby had died.
It honestly makes me sick just saying it out loud. He looked at a grieving, vulnerable woman, his future wife, and decided, you can't handle this baby. I'm going to get into someone else who wants him more.
Exactly. He viewed it as a clean slate for Annabelle. He thought he was saving her from the burden of single motherhood. Remember, this was before they were actually married. He wanted to be the hero who swooped in and took care of her.
If she had a baby, she wouldn't need him as much. Or she would be tied to her past.
Right. By removing the child, he made her entirely dependent on him for her future happiness and stability.
It is the ultimate violation. He decided her fate. He decided she wasn't ready. Who is he to decide that?
That is the core of his extreme narcissism. He truly believes he knows what is best for everyone. He justifies this monstrous act as an act of profound love. He literally says, I did it for you, Annabelle. I saved you. He genuinely expects her to be grateful.
Grateful he stole her newborn son.
In his mind, he solved the problem. He gave Summers a child to heal their grief, and he gave Annabelle a fresh start so she could be his perfect wife. It was just a transaction to him, a highly logical medical solution.
And when she doesn't thank him, when she screams that he is an absolute monster, the mask completely falls off.
We reach the climax, the kitchen scene. This is where the terrifying dream finally manifests in reality.
They are standing in the kitchen. Annabelle tells him she is going straight to the police. She is going to destroy his life, his pristine reputation, his best doctor award, all of it.
And for a man like James, reputation is literally everything. He cannot survive the shame. He cannot survive the loss of control. If he can't control the narrative anymore, he has to eliminate the threat.
So he snaps. The composed doctor mask falls off completely.
He lunges at her. His hands go right around her throat.
You're a monster, she screams.
Yeah.
And suddenly she realizes this is it. This is the recurring dream. The heavy hands on the throat, the total inability to breathe. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a rehearsal.
Because she had dreamed it so many times, she knew exactly what to do next. In the dream, she always reached for something.
The butcher knife.
And in reality, she does exactly that. She grabs the knife off the counter. She fights back.
It's such a powerful reversal. The anxiety that he constantly mocked, the hallucinations he constantly tried to medicate away, they are the very things that end up saving her life.
Yeah.
Her subconscious gave her the literal blueprint for survival.
If she hadn't had that specific dream, she might have frozen. She might have tried to reason with him. But because she had lived that exact moment a dozen times in her sleep, her body knew the choreography. She didn't hesitate for a second.
She slashes him. She gets away. The police arrive. The perfect suburban life is totally shattered, but she is alive.
And James is finally exposed. The facade is entirely gone.
So let's talk about the aftermath. Because the book doesn't just neatly end with the arrest. We see the real wreckage.
James is in prison, exactly where he belongs. Scarlett wakes up from her coma, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But she is deeply traumatized. She can't forgive her father. Her hero has completely fallen.
That relationship is permanently broken. And the book is really realistic about this. You don't just bounce back from finding out your father is a literal sociopath.
And Annabelle has to pick up the pieces. She realizes that all those years, her so-called anxiety was actually her intuition screaming at her. She wasn't crazy at all. She was highly perceptive. She was sensing the lies the whole time.
It is a massive validation of her entire internal world. She finally learns to trust herself again. We also get a resolution with the baby, well, the teenage boy now, Lucas. Annabelle meets him.
And I really loved how the book handled this part. It wasn't some cheesy fairy tale run into each other's arms moment. It was awkward. Lucas is 12 or 13. He loves his dad, Chase. He doesn't know Annabelle from a stranger on the street, but he's open to it.
It's so realistic. You can't just erase 12 years of history with a hug. But there is real hope. Annabelle accepts that she can't magically change the past, but she can build a relationship moving forward. Lucas even mentions he's always wanted siblings, referring to Scarlett and Olivia.
That's a really sweet moment. It suggests that the family can eventually blend. It won't be traditional, but it will be real. And real is so much better than perfect.
And we definitely have to talk about Tara, Chase's wife, the woman who actually raised Annabelle's son.
Tara is a fascinating, complex figure, she knew. Or, at the very least, she was complicit in the silence. She tries to defend her actions through the lens of saving her marriage and preserving her motherhood.
It really contrasts Annabelle's stolen motherhood with Tara's desperate, highly deceitful motherhood. She lost so many pregnancies, she was just desperate.
It shows how profound grief can warp our morality. She wanted a baby so incredibly badly she was willing to accept a stolen one. She convinced herself it was meant to be.
It really does. Tara isn't the clear-cut villain James is, but she certainly isn't innocent either.
Finally, the story leaves us with a deep philosophical question about fate versus choice.
Yes, the desert and the drowning quote. Chase and Annabelle discuss this near the end. If you're meant to drown, it won't do any good to move to the desert.
It asks the listener a huge question. Did Annabelle's dreams actually change the outcome? Or did they just prepare her to survive it? If she hadn't had the dream about the knife, would she have died in that kitchen? Or was she always destined to survive?
It's the kind of question that keeps you up at night, for sure.
It circles all the way back to the beginning, the subconscious mind. It knew the truth about James long before Annabelle's conscious mind could accept that her husband was a monster. It was trying to protect her the entire time.
You know, I feel like we breezed past some of the most psychologically juicy details in the middle there. We need to rewind and really unpack the gaslighting phase because Liv Constantine writes this with such terrifying precision. It's not just that James dismisses her, it's how he does it.
You're totally right. Let's go back to that anxiety label. We touched on it, but we need to look at the daily mechanics of it. There's a scene where Annabelle is genuinely worried about her job. She has a new boss, things are stressful, and she just tries to vent to James.
Oh, I remember this. She's just looking for a, hey, that sucks, honey, right? Like, normal partner support.
Exactly. But James turns it completely around. He asks, is everything okay at work? You're always on edge lately. He frames her completely normal reaction to a bad boss as a symptom of her mental instability. And then when she pushes back, he suggests she should just quit.
Which sounds nice on the surface, right? Like, oh, you don't have to work if you're stressed, but it's not nice at all.
It's highly isolating. He says, you know, you don't have to stay there if, and heavily implies her job is meaningless compared to his. He creates a narrative where she is way too fragile for the real world, and he is the benevolent protector who can shield her from stress if she just submits to his financial control entirely.
And she actually calls him on it in that moment. She says, I happen to get a lot of fulfillment from my job. I wanted to cheer for her there. But then she retreats. She goes into the bathroom and cries, and tells herself the dream was caused by anxiety. I need to call my therapist.
That is the ultimate tragedy of gaslighting. The victim ends up doing the abuser's work for them. James plants the seed. You're crazy, and Annabelle waters it. She rationalizes his toxic behavior. She thinks, he's just worried about me. He's a doctor. He knows best.
It reminds me of the frog in boiling water analogy. If James had choked her on the first date, she would have run screaming. But after 15 years of, here's your oat milk and let me handle the finances and you're just anxious, she is completely conditioned to accept his version of reality.
We definitely have to talk about the before chapters. The book is structured with these periodic flashbacks to before. We see young Annabelle. We see her with Randy.
Randy, the college sweetheart, the guy she fully thought was the one.
And that heartbreak is so crucial to understanding why she puts up with James for so long. Randy cheated on her. She walked right in on him. It shattered her trust in her own judgment. She thought he was perfect, and he wasn't. So when James comes along, steady, reliable, boringly perfect James, she thinks, this is safe. I won't get hurt here.
She totally overcorrected. She traded passion for safety, or at least what she thought was safety.
And James knows all about Randy. He uses that against her, too. There's a moment where he throws it in her face during the big confrontation. He says, I took care of you after that asshole cheated on you, and yet you still pined after him.
He was jealous. All those years, he was insanely jealous of a ghost.
Jealousy and total possession. He didn't just want to marry her. He wanted to own her. He wanted to be the absolute only source of happiness in her life. That's why he stole the baby. If she had the baby, she would have a profound bond that excluded him. She would have loved that wasn't directed at him.
Right. By removing the child, he ensured he was the permanent center of her universe.
It is so twisted. It's like he was curating her life like a museum exhibit. Here is the wife. Here is the house. Here are the children I allowed her to have.
And speaking of the children, we really need to discuss Scarlett's role in this whole dynamic. She is basically the canary in the coal mine.
Scarlett is the classic difficult teenager. She allegedly vapes. She talks back constantly.
But notice exactly who she clashes with. She clashes with James. Scarlett senses something is fundamentally wrong with her father. She challenges his authority at every turn. And because she challenges him, James is so much harder on her.
He wants to break her spirit, just like he broke Annabelle's. But Scarlett actually fights back.
There is that one scene where Scarlett gets detention and James is furious. He's literally clenching his fists. And Annabelle sees his fist and has a terrifying flash of the dream, the violence.
That's a huge key moment of intersection. The daylight reality where James is an angry disciplinarian overlaps directly with the dream reality where James is a violent killer. Annabelle actually defends Scarlett. She says she had her period, the substitute wouldn't let her go to the bathroom.
Which, by the way, is a totally valid excuse for walking out of class.
Completely valid. But James doesn't care about the context at all. He only cares about the disobedience. He cares that his daughter embarrassed him. And he accuses Annabelle of being way too permissive. He says, you always defend her. That's part of the problem.
He drives a wedge between mother and daughter, or at least he tries to. But in the end, it is Scarlett's accident that really wakes Annabelle up.
Let's talk about the accident dream again. It wasn't just a generic, oh, bad thing happens feeling. It was intensely specific. She saw the blood. She saw the hospital setting.
And when she tried to stop Scarlett from going on the trip, James humiliated her. He did it right in front of the other parents. He apologized for his hysterical wife.
That public humiliation is just another control tactic. It keeps Annabelle in line. If she acts out, she risks massive social embarrassment. And in a wealthy town like Bayport, appearances are absolutely everything.
But then the accident happens, and I want to talk about the stranger dream again. The man in the dream chase. Annabelle dreams about being in a hotel room with him, watching the sunset. It really feels like an affair.
And she feels so guilty. She wakes up feeling like she literally cheated on James.
But the dream wasn't about sex, it was about intimacy.
Precisely. It was about being seen. In the dream, she felt safe. She felt understood. It was her subconscious showing her exactly what was missing in her marriage.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, here's a handsome guy. It was, here is what emotional connection actually feels like.
And when she meets Chase, that connection is instant. But it's not just some romance novel trope. It is heavily grounded in shared trauma. Chase has a son, Lucas, who has a mother, Tara, who is emotionally unstable.
Right. Chase is dealing with his own difficult spouse. Tara is described as besotted, but also highly manipulative. Chase is basically staying for the kid.
Hmm.
So he and Annabelle really bond over this deep sense of duty and feeling totally trapped.
But Chase is the one who really pushes for the truth. He's the investigator. He brings the receipts.
He brings the literal receipt for the hotel room.
Yes, the dream hotel room.
Yeah, that was such a wild detail. Annabelle dreams of a very specific hotel. And later, they find a receipt showing James had booked a room there. Or, wait, was it Chase?
Oh, let me check my notes really quick. Okay, so Annabelle dreams of the hotel. Later, she finds out Chase stayed there. But the totally weird thing is, how did she know about it?
That's the supernatural element the book intentionally leaves ambiguous. Was it telepathy? Was it fate? Or was it just that their paths were destined to cross?
The book definitely leans heavily into the idea that there are forces we just don't understand, messages from the universe, exactly as Chase puts it.
And James, being the man of science, absolutely hates that. He hates anything he cannot measure, diagnose, or control.
Let's dig into the baby switch revelation just a bit more, because the sheer logistics of this are wild.
So go back to the night of the birth. Annabelle is in labor. She has a severe seizure. She is out cold.
Completely vulnerable, totally helpless.
James delivers the baby. He's a doctor. He sees that Annabelle's baby is perfectly healthy. He walks down the hall. He knows the Summers family. He knows their tragic history of loss. He sees their dying infant.
And in that exact moment, he makes a split-second decision that changes 4 lives forever.
He swaps the babies. He gives the dead Summers baby to the nurse to present to Annabelle as her own. And he gives the living Reynolds baby to the Summers.
And he genuinely thinks this is a good deed.
In his twisted mind, he is solving 2 problems at once. He is fixing the Summers' grief, and he is fixing Annabelle's life plan. He views Annabelle as a project. He thinks she isn't ready, she has a sick mother, she has no money. I will simply remove this obstacle.
It is so incredibly patronizing. It makes my blood boil. I will remove this obstacle. The obstacle is a human child, her child.
It creates a massive invisible debt. Annabelle owes him her life because he supposedly saved her from the struggle of single motherhood, but he can never ever tell her. It's a dark secret that festers for over a decade.
And the bracelet. Annabelle remembers the custom bracelet.
The bracelet is the definitive smoking gun. It proves it wasn't an accident. A hospital bracelet doesn't just fall off one baby and magically land on another. It had to be intentionally moved.
And when she confronts him, he tries to deny it at first. He says, "You're crazy, you're imagining things again." But she pushes. She finally pushes past his wall of gaslighting and denial.
And that is exactly when the God complex speech happens. I did it for us. I did for you.
He honestly expects her to be grateful. That is the wildest part to me. He genuinely expects her to say, "Oh, thank you, James. You were totally right. I wasn't ready."
And when she doesn't, when she reacts with entirely appropriate horror, his entire reality fractures. He cannot process that he is the villain of the story.
And that inevitably leads to the violence.
The violence is the inevitable conclusion of control. When psychological control fails, physical control is always the last resort. He tries to choke her just to silence her.
And the knife. I love that she uses the knife.
It's deeply symbolic. It's a domestic object, a kitchen tool. She takes the symbol of her domestic servitude, the kitchen where she made his specific coffee and cooked his meals, and turns it into a weapon of literal liberation.
Pure poetic justice.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to go back to the ending with Lucas again, the boy.
It's a very delicate situation. He's 12 or 13. He has grown up thinking Chase and Tara are his real parents.
And suddenly this woman shows up and says, "Hi, I'm your bio mom."
The book handles it with a lot of grace. Annabelle doesn't try to force him to call her mom. She respects his reality. She just says, I want to be in your life.
And Lucas is surprisingly cool about it. He says, "I've always wanted a brother or sister," referring to Scarlett and Olivia.
That's a sweet moment. It suggests that the family can blend. It won't be traditional, but it will be real.
Unlike the perfect family James created, which was completely fake.
Exactly. The messy, awkward, complicated reality is so much better than the perfect curated lie.
And what about Tara? Do we feel sorry for her at all?
It's really hard. She loved the boy. She raised him well. Chase admits that she wasn't a perfect mother. She was emotionally unstable, but she didn't abuse him. But she knew. She lived with a massive lie every single day.
She was desperate. She had lost so many pregnancies.
It shows how deep grief can warp our morality. She wanted a baby so badly she was willing to steal one, or at least willingly accept a stolen one.
It's a stark contrast to Annabelle, who grieved her dead baby for years but never let it turn her into a monster. She just got deeply sad. She tried her best to be grateful for what she had left.
Annabelle internalized her pain. James and Tara externalized their desires and basically forced the world to conform to them regardless of who got hurt.
Wow, deep. That is really deep.
That's why I'm here.
So we have covered the plot, the characters, the major themes. Is there anything else about the writing or the style of Don't Open Your Eyes by Liv Constantine that we should specifically mention?
I think the author does a really great job with the pacing. The book feels incredibly claustrophobic.
Yes, you feel totally trapped in that house with them.
The first half is a very slow burn. It's all about the creeping atmosphere of dread, the little passive-aggressive comments, the side glances, and then the second half, once Chase enters, it rapidly accelerates. It becomes an intense investigation, and then the final chapters are just pure adrenaline.
It's definitely a massive page-turner. I read it in one sitting. I honestly couldn't sleep until I knew if she got away from him.
It's effective because it taps into very primal fears. The fear of going crazy, the fear of being deeply betrayed by a spouse, the absolute terror of losing a child.
And the fear of the unknown, the
Yeah.
dreams.
Right. It forces us to confront the limits of our own understanding. James represents the sheer arrogance of believing we know everything. Annabelle represents the humility of listening to the unknown.
And the unknown wins in the end.
The unknown saves her life.
I really love that. The unknown saves her life.
It's a highly powerful message.
So what does this all mean for you? For you listening right now, driving to work or folding laundry?
I think the takeaway is pretty profound. We live in a world that heavily prioritizes logic, data, and authority. We are taught to always listen to the experts, to the doctors, to the rational voice in the room. But this story is a stark reminder that intuition is a totally valid form of data.
It's that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, the hair standing up on the back of your neck.
Exactly. Evolution gave us those instincts for a very good reason. They are survival mechanisms. When we suppress them just to be polite or to keep the peace, or because someone authoritative told us we're being crazy, we are actively disarming ourselves.
So the next time you get a bad vibe about someone or a situation just feels off, don't just brush it off. Don't let someone tell you to stop spiraling. Maybe, just maybe, your subconscious has already spotted the butcher knife long before you have.
Trust your gut. It might just save your life.
That is a perfect place to leave it. This has been a deep dive into Don't Open Your Eyes by Liv Constantine. If you haven't read the book, go pick it up immediately. The suspense is even better on the page.
Absolutely. It's a masterclass in psychological tension.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep your eyes open.
And sleep well.
Or try to. See you next time.